I was on LinkedIn the other day, which is probably a big mistake.
The dark world of LinkedIn.
So I was on LinkedIn the other day because I enjoy cringe. And I encountered this post. I did not realize the enmity between UI UX researchers and product managers. Mm-hmm. I did not realize, and specifically not just like the everyday product manager that's working, although they aren't grouped in with this group. The people selling a particular product management lifestyle is what I'm saying.
Yeah, there's a lot of those.
So, well, there's a lot of them, but I was shocked at the ferocity of the post. So I thought I would take a minute out of everyone's daily schedule to talk about the content of the post. It's not that long, so it'll read pretty quick, but I want to read it and I want to go paragraph by paragraph because I think it's important to talk about intent of what the way they see the world. Okay. Now the backdrop of this post is there's a feeling in the UI UX community that the behavioral analysis, like the deep dives in understanding user behaviors, product managers are like amateurs at this, and they don't really do deep dives. They don't really construct particular groups, focus groups and control groups, and they don't know how to do research. They're all kind of muddling through it and guessing, and they're doing basically bad research, and they're hurting their own products because they don't know how to go about product discovery. Really, we could have wrapped this discussion in the product discovery podcast that I know you want to have.
Yeah.
But I feel this would have dominated the whole podcast.
Well, probably, yeah. So I think for the purpose of this podcast, let's give everybody the benefit of the doubt and say maybe product people are not doing justice to this, right?
Yeah.
So let's just, from that lens, let's just approach this so that we can be fair to those people that are professional researchers. You know, I'm not going to rule out that field as such at this point in the podcast. What happens later, you'll just have to wait and see.
Well, I'm sorry to tell you, but on this podcast, I empathize with a lot of points in the article we're about to read. However, since I am the product manager, and since we have extensive experience with buyouts, corporate buyouts, like see our episode on private equity and corporate buyouts.
Right.
I will tell you, a lot of this, for me, lands on deaf ears because I can empathize with you, understand. Sounds like somebody that could be on my team expressing these frustrations. And then you roll it up to like the executive level or at least the director level, and they will say, "Stop whining, kid. Get back to work."
That's right.
Like, if you don't like this job, you can get another job.
Sad reality, but yeah, I think you're right. Those sentiments are exactly what are prevalent out there. But we're going to deep dive today. So
we are. I think I'm going to offer the corporate counterpoint, the PE counter for the private equity counterpoint, and Om will bring sanity to this podcast.
Try to. So welcome to Arguing Agile. We'll argue several dimensions of this topic.
That's right. Welcome to Arguing Agile. Hit our music. You already heard the music, and people, I don't think anyone likes it. If you like the music, if you like the theme of the podcast being before we start talking, let me know. Also, again, like I prefer the podcast that had no theme music.
Right. I agree.
We just jump right in.
No distractions.
Like if you have strong feelings about this, let me know. That's what I'm saying. Let me know.
Cool beans.
That's right. I look forward to your angry tweet. First, I'm going to remind about our working agreement, and now I'm going to add this post. So our working agreement, we don't name people's names. We don't blast people on the internet. So I have cut this author's name off this post. So we're not blasting the author. I'm not going to give you background on the author. I will tell you that their education and job role and experience tells me that they do know what they're talking about here. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I accept that the witness is an expert in the subject matter that they're talking about. Let's just get that right out of the way.
Yep, they have credibility.
Okay.
Cool.
Also, just in case, like if this is your first visit to Arguing Agile, that is Enterprise Business Agility Coach Om Patel, who has far more experience than I do across a wide array of fields, including software development, project management, business agility, leadership, organizational agility, business transformation. He does his own stunts. He can do your taxes.
I have played all of those things on TV. He's just way too kind.
He plays every sport. He'll beat you at basketball. And I am a product manager. I'm a active working product manager for several years, and I've spent 20 years in tech. So, like, if we're putting our credentials first, there you go. There you go.
He is the product manager extraordinaire for those people listening to us in French.
There you go. And my teams use Scrum out of the box with no additions or subtractions. They use exactly the Scrum out of the Scrum guide. So there we go. We're getting all the hot takes and all of our qualifications out of the way in the first 5 minutes of the podcast. So let's start with the post since I put it on the screen. It says, "This is why you're stressed, why you're having a hard time finding work when you've never had the problem before. This is why the products that you use suck. This is why the industry has forgotten how to build great products." So he's quite a claim. He's prefacing the article. He's trying to attract attention. I understand this LinkedIn. If this is going to be the evidence-based podcast, which this is not the way that I'm going to argue, by the way, but if I'm going to come out with softballs, he's giving me softballs to like this. This is all generalization. You should have cut all this out of your dissertation. I don't need any of this, right?
Exactly.
No concrete examples here. Call people out. I want to hear company names. I want to hear people's names. I want to hear teams that you've been cut from or whatever. Anyway, so continuing. Okay, enough with this dangerous and irresponsible product practice. It is causing so much more harm than good. We aren't building the right thing. We don't have the right people in the right positions, and we have fundamentally lost all process and specialization around product. It's a completely random mess with failing ROI and productivity.
Wow. Okay. So with that backdrop, let us proceed further.
Again, we're not naming company names. We're not naming projects. We're not naming evidence, basically, right? Okay. That's fine, though, because that's the tone of the article, hot and heavy, coming in hot. HAWT. All right, let's keep reading. Insight equals direction.
So for my money, this would have been much better if he had said insight equals greater than direction, meaning insight leads to direction. This says insight equals direction. There's something missing right there in that equation on one side of it. I think that's simplistic. It's just having insight doesn't necessarily give you direction. I think you have to interpret that and you have to lace that with intent and purpose before you get to direction. So I didn't write this article, but if I would have said insight equals greater than direction, meaning that insight leads to direction. Yeah. If you sprinkle the right ingredients into it.
Well, I think he is using it in a more academic term. Yeah, so it's you have knowledge and you have wisdom. You've already received the two of those and you're rolling them together for insight. And that insight is like the podcast that we did on intuition versus evidence. Like his insight is leading to intuition, and his intuition is basically the direction. This is the same thing as we did a whole podcast on. So I'm not really gonna.
Yeah, that's fine.
I understand the way that you take it when you first read it. Again, he's not laying out the evidence. You know what I mean? Here's a claim, and then here's
an assertion more than.
Okay,
that's
so,
fine.
So let's keep rolling through until we get to the main point, because I feel we haven't even gotten to the main point yet.
Right.
So he says a specific high-profile individual in product management, end paraphrase, has no appreciation for validity or the specialist skills of the product team around the individual, which means that any product team that follows this individual's advice is likely moving in the, quote, wrong direction and doing so, quote, blissfully unaware. That's why they cut us pesky researchers out of the loop, because we dare hold experience-based knowledge contrary to their own inexperienced opinions. They build the wrong thing and then point the finger at everyone else, making excuses all the way. How is this any good? Did we say at the opening of the podcast that this person was a researcher, UX researcher?
Let's reiterate here.
Okay, so the person that wrote this article is a UX researcher. So this person that does this has skill and experience. They have talent with behavioral science and research. So what they're saying is that the things that these product people that write books, that go on speaking tours and whatnot about product discovery, right? That they are going in the wrong direction and they're blissfully unaware of the damage that they're doing, basically, because they are not trained in any of this. They're kind of encouraging people to muddle through discovery, and that is a problem.
It is if you're a UX researcher, I suppose. But yes, I mean, there's assertion here, right, that muddling through, quote unquote, isn't a good way to explore things. Exploratory thinking is not necessarily evil, I would say. That's just my opinion.
Well, I mean, the problem with reading pieces of the article and reacting in line is I already want to dig in and say, what team would have a UX researcher on staff as part of the team, like as part of the fully cross-functional team as a full-time job role? I mean, like I think of all of the people on LinkedIn and all the people I see on forums and stuff like that, that developers specifically are allergic to the recommendation that a Scrum Master could be a full-time job. They will say, well, that's a role, and anybody can do that. We just do it for 15 minutes every morning.
Yeah, what do they do after 9:30 in the morning?
But I'm saying that like developers on the teams that experience this pain, you can imagine if they have this attitude, you can only imagine that the people that are in charge of hiring, what attitude they have. And now you're saying at least the Scrum Master sits on the teams and does something day to day, even in the worst organizations where they're called delivery managers and they're just a retitled project manager, or they actually do take a project manager and make them the Scrum Master, right? You project manager by job title, but your role now on this team is a Scrum Master.
That doesn't happen.
Blows my mind.
Much.
But even in that, I could understand why the company has a project manager in the first place. This is a tough call for someone. Forget small companies.
Yeah.
This has got to be a giant company.
You wouldn't have all of these roles in a small company necessarily. I also think that if you think about any typical sort of team environment, you may say we have a UX expert, but not necessarily a researcher, so a designer perhaps, right?
Sure.
Who parlays the user journey on paper and kind of explains to the team how that's going to go, how the user navigates through your product. But a researcher goes beyond that. They have other dimensions they dive into. Right? So I don't think many teams have the luxury of having a role like that. The other thing is, the roles like this don't come cheap, I imagine, right? These are scarce skill sets.
I would say that they probably have some sort of post-grad education. And yes, I would agree. They probably don't come cheap. But also, like the typical business executive, I mean, they struggle with when it's time to add another developer to a team, or when the ratio of QA people to developer, they're such a, on Maslow's pyramid, they're down here just trying to have the roof stop leaking on their head, and you're up here talking about like, how can we be our most real self at work? Like, these people are not even speaking the same language that you're speaking, so it's difficult. I can really empathize with what is being expressed in here. It's like, hey, I see a lot of people in this job field being laid off. Because the same thing is happening with Scrum Masters and Agile coaches. The exact same thing that's happening here is like, well, we don't value having an additional person. We can just have our UI UX person do this. Even when you were explaining, well, we have a UI UX person, and then they have the skill set of a researcher. And if they don't have the skill set of a researcher, maybe we can pay somebody part-time to come help them and train them up. As the same thing that they do with teams and Agile coaches, right?
Right.
Well, the team doesn't understand the basics of Kanban, and we're trying to not overload them with process. So we want to bring somebody in to teach them how Kanban works and live with the team for 3 months on a contract, and then you go away, or maybe you go on to another team or whatever. But we're not going to hire somebody who's a Kanban coach that just stays with the team and does nothing but helps forever.
Yeah, in my book, there's a space for bringing in specific skill sets to enable your teams and take them to another level, to redress the deficiencies they may have.
Yeah.
So yes, the other areas I can think of here would be perhaps advanced automation testing or DevOps.
That's a good one.
Right? Because you don't necessarily have a DevOps person on your team full time, but those skills can be embedded within the team. They can learn to do this. I can understand that's the line of thinking. You've also got to bear in mind that in the current economy, businesses are looking to save money. So you don't have the luxury of putting in these specializations on your team, right? So what I'm thinking about right now is change management, right? Why not have people on the team handle that aspect of the team rather than have a change management, quote unquote, specialist who, even if they're not full-time on the team, you have to hire them. They have to come in, they have to understand the context. Often they are also the communications person, right? So do we need that? Or can the team be self-sufficient to do that?
How about org design? How about somebody with an organizational design or industrial, I'm not quite sure what the degree is, but you can get a doctor of organizational psychology or organizational design to come in and say, hey, these teams are not, the interactions between these teams to be not developing in a way that I would like it to develop, and I just need to figure out exactly what's wrong with the teams and the team structures and why people can't make decisions and why everyone has to wait on me. You bring an expert in to analyze. This is like how consultants make all their money, isn't it?
It really is. And those OD
how come
people,
none of our strategies work? Give us new strategies and PowerPoint decks. And here's $1 bajillion.
Yeah, and we'll pay you based on how heavy your PowerPoint deck is. The OD folks are not cheap either. And the really good ones are really good. But there's a whole slew of the ones that are kind of mediocre to really bad.
Yeah, but couldn't you say, I could take this whole article and run it through ChatGPT and say, find and replace every instance of user research with organizational design and write me the same article as emotionally charged. Post it tomorrow and get like 2 likes.
Listen, you could do that because it's basically a placeholder. It's almost like a function on LinkedIn.
Yeah, but
you pass that parameter to, and there you go.
The difference is nobody's got somebody dedicated to organizational design, so nobody would raise a fuss about it. Yeah.
Well, a lot of people don't even have the UX researcher available either at hand.
Yeah, I could see the frustration here. Is like most people don't even have this because their executives just say, just do what I say. Like, you don't need a bunch of research and you don't need to spend a bunch of time. Just do what I say. I know what needs to be done. We did a whole podcast on I know what needs to be done.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly. That's a great podcast, by the way. So if you haven't watched it, do yourself a favor.
Right,
grab a cup of coffee and do that.
I think we stopped with how is this any good?
Right.
Is that where we stopped?
Yeah.
All it takes is setting the right direction and ensuring that you stay on the right course with a researcher informing the team. but instead there's an active choice to do it yourself at whatever risk. How is this any good? It's a lot less stress for everyone when decisions are made on evidence, not the evidence that a PM wanted to raise.
Yeah, that's a tricky sentence to interpret. I think what they're saying is it's easy to make decisions on the evidence that is actually raised versus the ones that the PMs didn't raise, is how I read it. They raised it, and you're still basing it on evidence.
Welcome to Brian and Ohm's Software Development Company. We sold out, cashed down, broed out. Brian is gone. Ohm is still here. The PE people.
Oh, you're sunk.
The PE people tell him, the PE people come in and tell him, they meet with him quarterly and tell him, raise prices, cut costs, and then they play golf. So yachts all around. That's what I'm saying. Yachts all around. But if I'm going to represent think of the PE people. That's what I'm saying. So what you're telling me is we got to send everything through the researcher before we can work on anything. That's what you're telling me. There's an erosion of business agility now because we want everything. Where somebody in the business world will push back against this is they will see this as an academic viewpoint to say like, oh, well, you just want to be in front of everything and we got to pass everything through you. And now we're back to waterfall, basically.
Listen, I'm right there with you on that one. You are not only eroding business agility, you're actually injecting business rigidity right here. First of all, it gives them legitimacy because it's kind of like, it's very explicit in this article that without them, you're basically toast, right? And I don't necessarily subscribe to that view. I'm on the fence, but actually I'm on the other side of the fence.
Well, you're not supposed to be on my side. You're gonna make me go
I'm on the side of the fence that says, researchers are great if you have the luxury of having all of that extra surplus cash that you can hire one or two of these people or for five.
All right.
But if you don't, you're not going to die because you don't have this skill set available because your teams can make do. They can actually do this work. Your PMs can do some of this work or a lot of this work.
Luckily, I built a gate into this fence so I can go to the other side whenever I need to. I feel like, remember that home improvement show where the neighbor was only ever shot from like the nose up or whatever? I feel like that's where we're at.
I think so.
We need to put a fence we need to put a fence line in our podcast now on the video. I feel like I'm transitioning to the other side now because I feel like I want to say, yeah, but how do you know what you're missing if you've never been trained? This is like every person that, hang on, I got to figure out how to bring this up without offending half the people that listen to this podcast.
Friend away.
There might have been a segue that I had to cut because I was ranting too much. But the point of this section was the business people at the top of the business will see this as slowing the business down, especially if they actually know what product management is. They'll see this as slowing the business down. They'll see this as slowing down their time to market. They'll see this as extra hoops they got to jump through. I mean, these are already people that don't want to set the goal and then they don't want to be involved in anything lower than that. They want to set the goal and they want to run away. They want to move a card on the Kanban and then they want to run away. They don't want to get drugged down into details. And those are the good business people. I'm not even talking about the golf swing guy that I've told the story about on another podcast where he was a VP of development.
Who's never done development.
And he'd never been a developer a day in his life. And he never worked I think he worked in sales, actually. I don't remember. But he got put in charge of development because they didn't really know what to do and then whatever. And whenever a technical conversation would happen, he'd go practice his golf swing in the corner. And that guy was absolutely disgustingly arrogant. And he had never accomplished anything. So, again, those people, I mean, first of all, they're not even going to read your post. They're not even going to consider all of your experience and everything. They're not even going to take into consideration the empathy, everything we talk about on the. They might be a psychopath.
They're the kind of people that will over to your desk with their suspenders on and go, yeah, Brian, why don't you go ahead and send that TPS report out to me?
I mean, if we go along with the stats of 10% of people are either sociopaths, psychopaths, or narcissists, and you factor the sheer volume of those people that make it up to the top, the tippy top of corporate America, there is a high chance that one of those people is in those seats that do the hiring for exactly what you're talking about. Yes. It's not the product manager influencers that are trying to sell a book and go to a breakfast and eat a donut and shake some hands. Those people are just trying to do their best. The ocean that you're trying to boil, go read the Toyota Way. And then come back to me.
Amen.
Come back to me and have this discussion again, because in the Toyota Way, one of the things expressed in that book is most of the executives, most of the people that are at the top of the Japanese companies are the opposite of their American counterparts. Where in order to get to the top, you got to be charismatic and you got to have this magnetism about you and you got to talk like this and this is how we talk, home. But the Japanese leaders are all humble and they're all soft-spoken. They are the opposite of charismatic. They're very boring type of people, dare I say. But that's exactly what you want in your business leadership. You want a stable, steady pace, a calming influence over. You want an adult in the room over the long haul as you're focused on the horizon 20 years from now.
These are the people that really foster the empowerment culture rather than the blame culture.
Right.
And we don't have that. For the most part, we don't. There are some pockets here and there. People tell me.
Again, I don't know where this person lives, works, was brought up. But I mean, that's a lot of those Silicon Valley people, they're trying to live a lifestyle. They're trying to rebrand their story about like, I went on a hike and I invented this company and I realized that it wasn't going good. And I said, how did it get like this? My goodness, who inflicted this on me? Oh crap, it was me. It was you the whole time. What is this hero story where you overcame something or whatever? Like, it was you the whole time. It was you against yourself the whole time.
Exactly. And people that they dump on, like I said, they have something to lose. And these are the people that aren't just simply putting out a theory or a book. Because you look into the history of these people, you find most of them have actually trodden the path themselves. Not like these guys that just say, we're it, right? Without us, you're toast. Really? Are we? Can you show us some evidence?
Yeah.
These are the exact same people that do this, by the way, are saying that they're turning the table. So they're saying it's not good to be not evidence-based. It's like you're the ones that are not being evidence-based right now, not the other side.
I can't believe we reverse position. I completely agree. I would find great benefit from having a trained scientist on my team, being able to challenge me to say, Brian, why don't we break up this finding and break it up into our hypothesis, and then we can break up our evidence, and I will not allow you to give circumstantial evidence. I would like only detailed observations from actual behaviors that comes from quantitative data through the actions in the applications or whatever, experiments or whatever. Like, I'm not going to say, well, Brian thinks that the users did it this way.
Right. So let me say a couple of things here on that topic. So first of all,
I'm for it.
Listen, if you have the luxury of having these people, you can afford it. Yeah,
but
right.
I'm for it.
Same, right? But if you have that, yes, look at their data. And I'm even going to go a little further than just say quantitative. If you have data, you could infer some things out of that. That might be qualitative. I'm okay with that. I'm okay to go out on a small limb, okay, a little. But I've never had the luxury of having these unicorns available to my teams.
Oh, that's not where I thought you were going with that one, because I thought I was about to have to break through this fence and be on your side, because I thought you were going, we can have all the data in the world, and then this executive is going to walk in and say that's those are outliers. Throw that data. I don't believe that user. I don't believe that experiment.
Do that anyway, I feel.
Like, again, I will tell you, I had a whole different podcast planned for today, looking at the CrowdStrike failure and analyzing that whole thing. Because again, this harkens back to that's right, I use the word harken. This harkens back to my experience as a QA manager. Because as a QA manager, I would say, like, these are the areas of the code we're observing more defects. I think there might be a problem. And then the developers will say, let me see all those bugs. Let me look at these bugs. Let me look at, well, that one's not a valid bug because no user reported it. And that one's not a valid bug because, that's not a realistic test case. And that's not a valid bug because no user is going to generate that kind of data. And that's not a valid bug because this one's too hot. This one's too cold. No true Scotsman. Again, I understand the frustration because as a product manager, when my organization fumbles the ball with organizational design, I just sit there and shake my head and like, how can you not see something so simple? But they don't have my experience in failing organizational designs, of being on teams that are designed badly or seeing management meddling, and then they can't see it. And I can't just tell them like, hey, these are terrible decisions. Nobody hears that.
They have to feel the pain themselves. Right. So that's an interesting point. People that are in charge of being able to influence or drive organizational design, the direction it's going in, they've never experienced the pain. Right. And if you tell them, they're just going to discount it and say, yeah, whatever.
This is the same thing. Exactly. How can you tell that data is bad? How can you tell that? I tell you 90% of users that enter our application click on this page first and then one of these other two pages second. They don't click on this other page that you think is important. We just launched a feature. This is a real example in the mobile world from when I was in mobile development. We launched a feature that the individual lobbying, I'm not even going to blast who the person was. Not even going to blast.
That's not how we roll either.
Yeah, that's how I roll. I'll say like, send me a tweet. I'll tell you exactly who this person was. This person lobbied for the change. Got to have this change. Got to have it. Everyone says they're going to use it. And actually, this is anybody who works in a sales-led company. Sure. Sales will tell you, the users have got to have this, new feature.
When you say sales-led, I hear sales-driven. So they're the ones that are saying, this is what's needed. Yeah. They have no evidence for that.
Right? Correct. Yeah. It's not, this is what's needed. Okay. I'll take your hypothesis. I bake it into our roadmap, and over the next 2 sprints, we'll find time to test it for you. Like, I'm going to take your hypothesis, I'm going to roll it into my roadmap, basically, and we'll test it. I'm assuming we have a framework. We keep bandwidth for testing ideas in our roadmap. We keep bandwidth in our sprints for it, or whatever we use, right? We have a mechanism that takes ideas from all around business, and we have an ideas board somewhere that people can see the current status of their ideas and stuff like that. Again, I've only one organization I have ever seen has even tried something like this. So I'm amazed. I really am amazed that this person is this upset about it, because again, 20 years, I've not actually operationally seen this executed anywhere.
I mean, look, my experience is the same. I've not seen this.
I mean, they're real. I 100% believe that the big social media companies have behavioral researchers.
They do. However, having said that, and I don't have any insight into how they work operationally, are they really using these people in the way they're supposed to be used, right? They should be used. Or are they simply, quote unquote, paying lip service to say, we're listening. We're listening. We're taking feedback from our audience. We're doing behavioral design and all of this stuff. I don't really know. I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying I don't know.
I mean,
right?
I would posit to say, since he's saying they're all being laid off, I would guess that, again, the same thing happening to Scrum Masters is happening to these folks.
Their value proposition is a little wonky right now.
The leadership and whomever is listening to what they're saying, looking at the evidence, paying lip service, and saying, you know what, I'd rather have another developer.
Sure, I can have 4 for the price of 1. So I think that's where we're
4
going.
Offshore, maybe.
Near shore.
I don't think these people get paid quite that much.
They have PhDs and whatnot, so they probably pay more than you think.
That doesn't necessarily mean anything. I mean,
I agree.
A PhD working for a university gets you like...
Yeah, I get that. I get that.
These people are criminally underpaid. I'm not saying that the university system takes advantage of people, but also...
You're also saying they...
Yeah. So I'm going to continue. It says, I'm now at the end of my tether with regards to this individual's style of product management. It's flat out wrong. Too open to interpretation. Too offensive to any evidence-driven mindset or data-driven team. It's just amateur hour. It's actively watching a slow, long-term car crash happening in front of our eyes. It's hard to watch. It's hard to experience. And it's all completely avoidable. There is an active choice to do the wrong thing. Let's be absolutely clear about it. The longer this perpetuates, the longer we are delaying success and over-focusing on a single author's ideas rather than extensive experimental practice knowledge. So again, it's another emotional plea, which I'm not, I don't know. I'm kind of over the emotional tone of this. I mean, it's difficult to evaluate the actual argument that's happening here. I kind of want to just finish the article and then we can just about the rest
you're
of
right. I mean, so far it's laden with opinion, right?
Okay. All right, let's finish the article. So let me make sure he doesn't. Okay, yeah. Manage this stuff out. Take the bull by the horns and actively manage the situation. The tail is wagging the dog. We're on a negative trajectory. Fix productivity and profitability. Enough's enough. They've had a good long go at PM, and it isn't getting any better, just worse. Time to revert to a known good. Sorry, time to revert to a known good and reduce all this crazy risk and stress. The difference between good and bad product is behavioral insight. We have behavioral researchers to acquire this insight for you. Employ them, use them, involve them. You will build better products and be a better product manager. That's it. Well, there you go. If I could clip the bottom and put it at the very top of this article, that would improve the article 10 times over.
I agree. That last paragraph that he's saying, I don't disagree with that, right? I mean, you'd be silly to ignore that, I think. Where I can take a little bit of a different tact on this is, who does that? Do you really need these people? Well, do you want them? Do you desire them? Those are different questions, right? If you could afford them, if you desire them and can afford them, sure, go for it, right? There's nothing to lose and everything to gain probably, but assuming they're of good quality and all of that. But do you want them? You might want them, but you can't afford them. So at the end of the day, can you do what they do to the best of your ability, right? Given what you can pay for, right? That's where I'm going with this.
I'm glad you're going there. I don't know if I'm ready for my final arguments because there's a bunch of stuff that we haven't talked about. How do you measure ROI on these people? If I'm going to go with a PE firm, these are the softballs. The softballs.
These are absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. These are the same people that ask how you measure ROI on a Scrum Master or Agile coach or whatever. Until they have giant problems and then they bring in organizational consultants. They bring in McKinsey or whatever and pay them millions and millions of dollars to fix it. And then nobody asks what the ROI is, right? So you already got me with the we need more data thing, because again, like anybody in a startup is going to push back on that and say like we can't afford to wait on this decision, we need to get more data. And then there's an underlying current here that wasn't touched in any of our previous counterpoints, which is there is a balance of short-term profit. Oh, well, there's no balance, quite honestly. Like corporate America is rigged for short-term profit. We don't care about what's going to happen in 20 years. Corporate America believes that nobody's going to be here in 20 years. We're all going to nuke ourselves out of existence. Like that's corporate America's retirement plan.
Sadly, that is true. I say sadly.
So
I lament that.
So if you're making any claim that you're making of this is good for long-term profitability, to build our brand over time, to really understand our users and go deep with them and whatever, I'm with you as a product manager. But trust me, my management and my management's management and the investors that go with them, they are not. And also, I would argue, like, take a broader look at the U.S. stock market, and I would say they are also not with you because the PE ratio is also decoupled from reality. Anyway, like, how is it possible? It's because the stock market has become disconnected from actual value. So like, I understand what you're saying. Hey, let's build something real. Let's go build a real log cabin with our hands and actually assemble something that will last for 100 plus years or whatever. But also the stock market is like, woo, tendies, like buy our next yacht, cash out, bro down. Like there's a lot that is working against. So this is one of those arguments, like I got a lot of empathy. I want to be with this person. It's just like I want to be with every Agile coach. I want to say like, yes, companies are super short-sighted, not understanding like you can't just shortcut your way through organizational design. You need to get an expert to help you, because I know that you're not an expert at it. I did this for years with experts who actually were experts, who dedicated their careers to this stuff and took it very seriously. And even they struggled. So I know that an executive who doesn't dedicate any time, read any books, try to do it, for years and fail and succeed in varying ways, and they're not asking for help and they don't value help.
They're not looking beyond the end of their arms, really. I mean, it is really short-term thinking that plagues all of us.
Right. Yeah, they only think in short-term. And again, this is, sorry to be pedantic, everybody, but this is straight out of the Deming of, if you only care about short-term, Deming short-term was like 3 to 5 years. I mean, that was short-term for him. So if you only care about the short-term and your managers, turn over every 2-3 years, you're never going to have a deep organizational DNA, and you're just going to go from the latest fire to latest fire,
Yeah, you'll just be muddling through.
Yeah.
By the way, there will be a Deming podcast coming to a podcast near you real soon.
I don't know. So like there's a couple other ones that we could talk about here, but I think we beat this one up enough that the point comes across. Like UX research, again, just like Scrum Mastery. Actually, I feel pretty confident now. I wasn't sure going into this because, again, I've never worked with a UX researcher. I tried to stay away from this topic. We've never talked about it on the podcast. Yeah. I would be open to having a UX if there's any that live in the Tampa area or that listen to this and want to talk about this topic. I'd be open to talking about this because I completely admit I don't understand. I've never worked with one. I never worked with one. Although I do understand the need for behavioral psychology in the products that we build and teaching us skills that we don't understand, how to do better research, how to understand user behaviors, how to really understand them, how to ask questions where you're not biasing the answers. I'm 100% on board with that. I research that stuff so I can do a better job, and I know that I'm not the best at it.
Well, I think if you're a product manager listening to this podcast, I mean, to a certain degree or the other, you probably have been doing this yourself. Right. And again, given a blank check, you would also welcome a UX researcher, I'm sure. Right. So if you're a UX researcher, please reach out, because we'd love to hear from you and have you on a podcast.
I would, but maybe not for the same reason that you think that I would. Even if they could only temporarily join my team for a couple sprints or whatever, and then bounce off, they would leave my team with an advanced skill set that I know that no other team has. You know what I mean? The same thing is if I could have a DevOps person come on and just work with my team just to help them set up pipelines and orchestrate their stuff through to production. Or if I was to have a DBA come on to my team, like a real DBA, not me like adding new tables or whatever, and just adding random indexes where I think an index should be, right? I index every column because that helps our performance, right? Let's run some tests. Let's add the index. Let's run some tests again. I'll show you how performance happens, and it'll just be magic to you that has never even seen that before.
And show that to your team, that it really takes them to another level.
Right.
And that's great. A DBA could start with, like, here's the before execute plan, here's the after. Yeah. So
I would be willing to do that because I would be willing for anybody that can advance my skill set and give me some skills that will stay with me. Somebody that comes onto my team and says, Brian, you say that you think users want X, whatever. But here are the experiments you might think about running in order to confirm or refute that. Here are the things you can do without biasing your users. And then it's up to you, Brian, once you have the evidence, to make the right decision based on the evidence that you're seeing. You can advise me, but you can't really tell me to do that. Unless you're saying UX people should be the VP of product everywhere. And if that is what you say, I'll say, whoa, calm down, because Gary from sales, he firmly has that unlocked. That's his next job.
Oh, I like our friend Gary from sales. So I'm with you on that. If you can have somebody like that even temporarily join your teams, they would really enable the team and take them to a different level. I've never had the opportunity or the luxury to be able to have people like that on my teams, even for a short period of time. You go back to that whole thing, like you said earlier, why do that when you can have a developer for 5 sprints instead of having somebody for 1 sprint or 2 sprints? Right. Short term, exactly. Yeah. Yes.
I mean, that's where I'm trapped with this. That's where I come away from the podcast. If you strip the emotionality out of this, like the emotional plea out of this, and you strip it back to the elements that it's actually trying to convey, I agree with it 100%. We should have these people that are experts in behavioral analysis and what it takes, experimenting with what it takes to change behaviors and really understanding and driving with data. In small companies, your product people are going to be the people that are tapped to do that. So if they don't have that skill, they should reach out to experts to teach them to do that skill. But in larger companies, maybe they can hire somebody like this and share them across programs. That's a best case scenario. I assume that what's going on in the market now is a general drawdown of this type of position.
Which is really, I think, the genesis of this post, right? I agree. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what tomorrow brings, but keep all of these options open. I mean, don't belittle these people that are UX researchers. If you are one, like I said, please reach out and we'd love to hear from your standpoint.
Yeah.
Where you're at. I think there's also this thing from where I said it's like the over specialization of specific skill sets like that. Maybe you want to empower your product people to harness some of these skills themselves.
Right.
Again, I'm not saying that they'll be at the same level as a dedicated UX researcher, but maybe it's good enough.
UX coach coming to a LinkedIn near you.
That's right.
UX,
exactly.
along with product coaches and agile coaches and DevOps coaches and
org design coaches and psychological.
Sorry, no, we draw the line at org design coaches. We can't have that.
Can't have that.
No. All right. Well, there's no ROI in this podcast, so we're done.
We are done. Hopefully this has been worth every penny you paid for. Let us know what you think other topics, could be that you'd be interested in. And don't forget to like and subscribe down below.